the issue of proper definition of corruption. Are we talking about influence? Are we talking about nepotism? What exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about payments? Are we talking about stealing? What exactly do we mean by corruption? We need to properly define this so that we can guide our children on what it is that we are trying to fight. I thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I support.
Honourable members, despite the interest on this motion, the time limit, understanding orders shows that its time is up. So we'll call the mover to reply. You have 10 minutes.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Before I reply, may I kindly, with your approval, donate 2 minutes each to my brother Wanjala, Honorable Senai, and
Mover.
Yes, sir.
Put it in order. You have donated Honorable Wanjala 2 minutes. Who is the other member?
Senai.
Yeah?
Senai of Wajir North.
The member, Sanei.
Honorable
2 minutes.
Honorable Senai.
Sanei, yes.
Senai.
2 minutes.
And my member was Mishmiwa there. 2 minutes there, please.
Those are 6 minutes.
6 minutes and 2 minutes to Madam Fatima. That's 8 minutes.
Yes.
And I can round up in 2 minutes.
All right. We'll have Honorable Wanjala 2 minutes. Honorable Sanei 2 minutes. That way, Honorable Kirema 2 minutes. Honorable Fatuma 2 minutes, and you'll conclude in 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Honorable Wanjala.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, corruption in every single government starts immediately the government is inaugurated. It starts by calling members who have been elected to parliamentary group meetings. And then they are told you are in government, the other people are in opposition, so you must defend the government. But Madam Speaker, the work of Mayor of our Parliament, we have both of us from minority and the majority, we have to do 3 works only: legislate, represent, and oversight. So other people should not feel they are in the government, they cannot criticize the government. They are supposed to criticize the government. So it starts by blackmailing people. Madam Speaker, the leadership, when it wants to be corrupt, it starts blackmailing the church leaders. Church leaders cannot condemn anybody because the decision to condemn is by God. And I wonder when a leader, a government leader who is in charge, would go and appoint a church leader, a bishop, to preside over anti-corruption institution. This is where corruption starts from. Madam Speaker, today they told us Kimwarere and Aror, when they lost money, it was only 7 billion. They are in leadership today. They have not brought back that 7 billion. Madam Speaker, as I continue, they complained here of KEMSA. KEMSA, the newspaper, was awash that somebody's son was there.
Honorable Kwenya, what is out of order?
Madam Speaker, the Honorable Wanjala is completely out of order in the sense that whatever he's talking about is a motion that was passed by this House. Either he's trying to insinuate that this House acted in vain, and of course we know Parliament does not act in vain, and therefore I plead with you, Madam Speaker, that you declare the Honorable Wanjala completely out of order.
Honorable Wanjala, I know your time is over, but from what Honorable Kwenya is saying, I don't think you're really out of order by, you're not out. Continue. Wind up.
Give Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Give Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And give God what belongs to God. Why do we go and pick men of God already appointed by God, bring them to what Caesar is doing? That is where corruption is entrenched, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, this country belongs to all of us. scholarship in Wasibigishu, Madam
Member for
Speaker,
Marsabit,
where
out
the
of
president
order.
is...
Hold on, Honorable Wanjala. Honorable Wanjala, take your seat.
Madam
Take your
Speaker,
seat.
Madam Speaker, is the honorable member in order to blame the men of God, the men and women of God, while they cannot be here and defend themselves of participating in corruption? Is in order?
Honorable Ako, I think Honorable Wanjala has made a general comment on leadership of the church. We also have bishops in this house who can defend themselves. So I will ask you to finish up, Honorable Wanjala.
I was saying, Madam Speaker, that even the backyard of the president, today is where there is the biggest scam on scholarship. How long does it take the whole president with...
Your time is up. Honorable Sanei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the generosity of my senior Honorable Shakir Shabir. I would wish to make reference to my colleague, Honorable Wanjala, in trying to indicate that the government is not serious on on corruption, whereas we have just come from a government that is so ugly, shameless, trying to fleece what was meant for COVID. The worst form of corruption since independence happened in the last parliament, during the last government. I believe this government took up the work of fighting corruption so seriously, and they have indicated severally that this is not a government to tolerate corruption. Be that as it may, Madam Speaker, greed cannot be taught in school. No curriculum can deal with matters of greed and corruption. This requires the upbringing of our children be straightened, the culture on how we bring kids. What kind of values do we imbibe on our youngsters? Madam Speaker, it's about tightening our laws. It's about how serious or effective is wealth declaration, lifestyle audits we have been doing, and they have become so conventional, so formal, yet not effective. Is Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission seriously up to the task? I believe they themselves are rotten to the core, that they can't hold anybody responsible for corruption cases. Performance and accountability on the duty bearers, those who are the accounting holders of any department or ministry, must be serious on matters of accountability. Madam Speaker, lastly, whistleblowing, public shaming, these are the things.
Your time is up. Honorable Member for Central Imeni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First and foremost, I thank my chairman for donating those 2 minutes to me. Mine is just to say that corruption in Kenya is in one way or the other inherent in our blood, that we don't know. We need a proper definition of what called corruption, because it is so much involved in the society. You come and find that from the time when we started the devolution, since the year 2010 when the new constitution was devised, corruption was devolved from the top cut from the national government to the county government, because whatever you do, you will not achieve it before you have something which you change under the table. It's very interesting that even if you work for people innocently, at the end of the day, you find them bringing you something saying that they are appreciating your work. And I believe that's the that type of corruption. So, Madam Speaker, mine is that we should have a good definition of the same, and then we come with very strong law of how we are going to deal with those people who are bound to be culprit of corruption. For if you go to China, Singapore, and those other Oriental countries, it's interesting that when one is found with corruption, you find that the law is not lenient. But in Kenya, a number of things is, if you are corrupt and you have a lot of money, you are given a very light sentence. And at the end of the day, it encourages even the small children to be corrupt. Is it possible we have curriculum whereby it is taught in primary schools and secondary schools that corruption is bad, so that it can be inherent in their blood? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Fatuma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I also thank my brother, Mheshimiwa, for giving me donating his minutes to me. I think Kenyans, we are pretenders. We speak so well here, but what we practice is not what we say. I remember just after we came into Parliament, the President came here and talked about how he's going to deal with corruption. But I was shocked to see that amongst the first people that he pardoned in the presidential pardon was someone who was convicted in a Kenyan court for being corrupt, and the President pardoned such a person. How else will Kenyan trust that he's going to deal with corruption? Of all the cases, there are those who stole chicken, they are not pardoned. But a thief, a non-thief, who has gone through court process, proved to be a thief, has been pardoned by the President. Does he really mean what he says? What is the meaning of corruption? It is actually to bribe someone. The youths were bribed. They were given money. They were called sweet name hustlers. They were promised nice things. Those things have not been given to them. That is also corruption. So corruption does not just mean taking money and putting it in your pocket. The churches are also corrupt, just as the mosque too. They lie to wananchi. When a church comes and tells you, give 10, I pray for you, it will turn into 100. That is corruption. So let us be honest, especially the government. Be honest. Telling us that you're going to fight corruption and pardoning a corrupt person, may Allah watch over you. I lack words.
Mover. Shakil, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam. Madam Speaker, I have been so overwhelmed by the and so happy to hear the support of my members of Parliament, and I really am proud of you all. In the fight against corruption, it's a lonely battle sometimes. It's not very helpful sometimes, but when I have the support, the moral support of members of Parliament, of the Kenyan Parliament, it is a great encouragement. Mr. Speaker, what we need is executive, from the top. We need the executive, we need the top support. And I'm pleading to the President at this moment in time, as the President of this country, lead us against the fight against corruption. Whether you call it state capture, whether we call it corruption. Corruption really is theft. Theft of time, theft of opportunities, theft of everything else. So corruption cannot be killed by one person. Everybody must take a part, and it must have the concurrence of the leaders at all, from the President all the way down. Of course, I have heard many times that China is very strict on corruption. Yes, they are, and we've been to China. It is the Communist Party that executes all this corruption, and it is very important. Madam, somebody is asked what is the definition of corruption. Corruption is theft. It is there since time immemorial. Our job is to make sure that the Kenyan Parliament, as APNAC, and we're all members of APNAC, can fight this corruption. I have been asked about why I've been there for a long time. I'm trying to lead. We have a new executive committee. Every single member of the executive committee is new, except for me. I was voted in. I did not even want to stand, but I was told that I must lead the new executive committee. And finally, I want to tell you that APNAC is a registered organization. It has institutional, it is a registered under guarantee and is institutional. So let's work for this, and let's fight for corruption, against corruption, as APNAC Kenya. That is the Parliament and the Senate. I'm very encouraged. Thank you very much for the support you've given us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Shakil. The debate on this motion is effectively concluded. Under 53.3, Standing Order 53.3, the question will be put the next day. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Report on a visit to semi-autonomous institutions of the East African Community.
The Chairperson, Select Committee on Regional Integration, Honorable Wanjiku Muhia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move that this House adopt the report of the Committee on Regional Integration on its consideration and report on the inspection visit to semi-autonomous institution of the East African Community in Arusha, Tanzania, from 2nd to 8th April 2023, laid on the table of this House on Tuesday, 6th June 2023. Honorable Speaker, Regional Integration Committee is a select committee established under Standing Order 212, and its main mandate, in summary, is to examine the record of all the relevant debates and resolution of the meeting of the East African Legislative Assembly. It also examined the bills introduced in the East African Legislative Assembly and the acts of East African Community. Honorable Speaker, the Committee of Regional Integration also examined the records of all relevant debates, resolution, and the meeting of the Pan-African Parliament, the African, Caribbean, and Pacific European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly, and other regional integration bodies, hand in hand with inquiring into the examining any other matter relating to regional integration, generally requiring action by the House. Honorable Speaker, I didn't need to read the mandate of this committee, but I feel as one of our key jobs now on the table is to make sensitization to the citizens of East Africa, citizens of Kenya, and the citizens of Kenya are represented by the members of this House and the Senate. I feel the need to keep on informing the members. Time and again, recently we had an issue with the members who sit in Pan-Africa when they wanted to present their report, and we read to them that we are supposed to examine those records so that we inform the House well informed. That being said, Honorable Speaker, the purpose of this inspection was first to equip my members of my committee in familiarizing them with the institution within East Africa, so that as we continue with the journey in the next 5 years, now 4 years, they get to understand which institutions are established in East Africa. Honorable Speaker, we also meant to make members appreciate the operations of East Africa institutions, organs that provide services in the facilitation of EAC integration. Also, to establish a basis for awareness creation in East African region and the role of the Parliament in the regional integration process. Honorable Speaker, we were also intending to get feedback and recommendation from EAC institution, organs, on areas of policy support and any advocacy. Honorable Speaker, this issue of awareness, we will continue creating awareness because sensitization is everything, because people cannot deal with matters which they do not understand. Why do I say that, Honorable Speaker? It was important for our members to be aware. I want to relate with today's event in State House. Honorable Speaker, I broke protocol this morning, and I'm sure Honorable Felix Koskei wondered, and I denied him eye contact so that he couldn't rule me out of order in the presence of the President. And I carried this with me. I would give it to the majority leader because he was missing in the event. Honorable Speaker, our own government, my own government of Kenya Kwanza, is not aware of East Africa region. It is not even aware what is the mandate of East Africa as a ministry. And today, the Minister of East Africa did sign the contract of ourselves, leaving the contract, signing the contract of regional integration. Why do I say this? The East African Ministry was established time back when the summit sat down and found that matters of regional integration are getting lost in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And so they did sit as the highest organ in East Africa, and they concluded and resolved that each country shall have a Ministry of EAC. And this Ministry of EAC core mandate is regional integration matters, Recently in Kenya Kwanza government, our president did add this ministry the mandate of ASALs. This is an additional mandate. It is not the mandate which the East African ministry was established upon. So it is very, very unfortunate that people making this program can forget that East African region do exist, and they think that East Africa ministry do exist to deal with ourselves. The original mandate, as foreign affairs is written down here on this program, it deals with the diaspora. The original mandate of foreign affairs is foreign relation, then diaspora and any other agenda can come. Back to my presentation on this report, but I needed to put out that, Honorable Speaker, is that the committee visited the semi-autonomous institution like the Secretariat itself. The Secretariat is fully autonomous, but it is the mother of the semi-autonomous. They did visit the EACJ, that is East African Court of Justice. They didn't have the privilege of visiting IALA because IALA by then was having a sitting in Bujumbura, but they did visit the competition authority, and they also visited the ESAMIS. Honorable Speaker, they found a number of issues. They observed a number of issues. For interest of time, I may not go through them because they'll be captured in the recommendation. But in this visit, Honorable Speaker, they first found that the community is constrained of financial stability. One, the community is facilitated by partner states. Each partner state contributes approximately $8 million per year through the Ministry of EAC, through Treasury, and this money, time and again, does not reach Arusha as expected. So you will find a country is supposed to remit, for instance, in the month of July. That is why the budget again was meant to be read on 30th of June in all countries within our region, so that no country say, I have not read my budget, that's why I cannot remit. But time and again, you'll find a country like South Sudan, a country that we love, we respect, it is in the bloc, it's our brother. It doesn't remit year in, year out to a tune of $30 million. So this late submission of remittance bring delays in implementation of policies or other matters in EAC. The committee also did find the challenge of staffing in all these organizations, which has been there ever time immemorial, even when I was in IALA. There is always wrangles, and so the institutions do not have enough staffs. The committee also did find that lack of awareness. For instance, East African Court of Justice offers so good services to the citizens. The citizens do not use the court fully because they are not aware. The committee also found that the NTB, non-tariff barrier, is the greatest challenge to the growth of this community. Honorable Speaker, we will refresh our memory that our East Africa is established on the 4 pillars, mainly the custom union, the common market, and in the common market we speak of free movement of goods, people and services. But the NTBs in this region, Honorable Speaker, have limited this protocol to be implemented in full. There is always NTBs, name them, the roadblocks. This weekend we had a privilege to have a one-on-one with the Ministry of Road and Transport, and we intend to have a sitting with the Ministry of Interior, because these roadblocks do bar trade to happen. You go at after implementing the custom union, you go at the border, one-stop border post, you find the mindset of the officers. They do not know that you don't need a visa to cross to our neighbor. The boundaries are currently there, but in essence, in the spirit of EAC, it's like those boundaries do not exist. That's why we have one-stop border post. So this mindset need to change, and all these are issues to do with the non-tariff barriers. Honorable Speaker, the recommendation of this committee, especially through the subcommittee that went to Arusha, is that East Africa, through the Ministry of EAC, to explore an alternative financial mechanism for the community. it is not any longer tenable to ask countries to remit, and we are not able even to sanction those sanctions in the treaty, those who delay. The other recommendation from the committee is that there be fast tracking of amendment of the treaty. There have been a lot of work in amendment of the treaty. We have issues that delay the community, like the issue of consensus, that you have to sit, 7 of us, because now we are 7, and 7 of you have to be in consensus with an issue on the table. Honorable Speaker, today, 21st century, is just not possible. That's why the community is not able to move. How can 7 people think the same? How can 7 people agree? There will always be dissenting voices. So it has been the push that this treaty need to be amended, and this need to be fast-tracked, hand in hand with other regulation, like the Act of 2017 of NTBs. The non-tariff barriers framework is not in place. So as much as we say the roadblocks shouldn't be there, but how many should be there? For instance, from Nairobi to Namanga, from Dodoma maybe to Kobero or such. Finally, there is need to create awareness. Me, as the chair of this committee, I have continued to create awareness. I have continued. That's why I broke the protocol at State House and moved when my minister was called to create awareness to the country that East Africa exists. So there is need to create awareness, and with this, we shall be able to handle matters of East Africa well, because we shall be able to discuss what we understand. Those are just some of the recommendations, but we have quite a number. The key, which I would like the members who will debate to discuss, is the East African Court of Justice. Honorable Speaker, we are contributing money. Remember, the East African Court of Justice was established almost 2 decades. To date, it's still an ad hoc court. It doesn't work full time. What justice do we give East African citizens if a judge will go and work for 3 weeks, come back? To date, the court is still temporary because it is hosted in Arusha, Tanzania on temporary basis. So it is up to the East African team through the ministries to agree that this court will now be permanently in Arusha. Then that chapter is closed, but most importantly, each partner state through the ministers of East Africa must agree that the East African Court of Justice have to be full-time. Maybe Mtata by now could be going to EACJ. He is bothering us here in Nairobi, but he's aware that maybe when he wants to go to EACJ, the EACJ is not sitting. And so are the many citizens of East Africa who have matters, but they are not aware when the court is sitting, when the court will sit, and that is justice being delayed. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg that members deliberate matters of East Africa passionately, because this is the way to go. For the information of this House, we just gave views of the political confederation a month ago to Arusha. This means we are already fast-tracking the final pillar of East Africa, which is political federation, but because we are not yet there to have one president in East Africa, the transition is the confederation. This is already almost realized. So members, we need to realize and understand and embrace matters of East Africa, so that tomorrow we don't have a confederation, then we start asking, how did it come about? Where did it came from? We are the one who should guide our citizens by telling them on East Africa opportunities that are there, how they can trade. Because I'll tell you, the country called Uganda, the country called Tanzania, they do a lot of trade today, mostly on small-scale businesses than us, because they are aware. Their citizens have continued to inform them through their parliaments. Let's embrace matters of East Africa. Let's speak this to the citizen, so that the Mama Boga here may be aware that in Tanzania we don't have boga, though we have the onion and carrot, and they can also trade. There is free trade of close to 300 million people. The DRC Congo is already on board. Our citizens are not aware. Plenty of opportunities are there. So let us speak and embrace matters of East Africa. With that, I beg to move, and I request through your approval, Honorable Beatrice, who was one of the delegation, to second this motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Kemei.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to second this motion on the report on a visit to semi-autonomous institutions of the East African community. To start with, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank our chairperson for being passionate about matters East African community. I'm very aware, Madam Speaker, that when we were given this opportunity to be in this committee, we have so many members, 22 of us, unlike the other committees, and members felt like that is the only place if you don't have another opportunity, you can be in that committee. It has nothing much. But I want to confirm here that with the leadership of Honorable Wanjiku, we are doing well. We have visited one or two places, but in particular, I want to talk about this visit to Arusha. And Madam Speaker, with this visit, I learned so many things, and I want to support Honorable Chair by saying that East African community is very, very important and dear to us, not forgetting that after always we sing our national anthem, the next one that comes is the East African anthem. That tells us that it is very, very important, knowing that East African community consists of 300 million citizens, of which 22% of them live in urban centers with a population, with a land area of 4.8 million square kilometers, and the gross domestic product of that is of East African community is 240 billion, and that is according to the statistics of 2019. And knowing that more members are joining the East African community, for now, I want to also be happy and appreciate the fact that Kenya is considered as the big brother, having other member or partner members being DRC, the Republic of Burundi, Rwanda, South Sudan, Uganda, and then the United Republic of TZ. And the community, from what we have, the East African community, from what our chair has given us, has these autonomous institutions being, in any case, the East African Court of Justice, the Common Market, and I want to also appreciate Common Market being one of the pillars here, with the activities being the issuance of the new international, the e-passport that came into place in 2019. So that one also tells us that we can move from Kenya to TZ to Uganda freely, and with the free movement of persons, free movement of workers from one point to another, the laborers, we also have services, capital, and all that. So with this, it is very, very important, Madam Speaker, to know that East African community is very, very important to us. So as I can also say that the East African Legislative Assembly is key. We have sent our members there and they represent us. The many issues and cases in that the legislation are key. However, we didn't find the members. The sitting was not there, it was in Burundi. But we looked at the assembly. Very interesting, very beautiful. But we hope next time we will find the sitting there, or in Kenya for that matter. Now, when it comes to the East African Secretariat, Madam Speaker, I want to appreciate the fact that the many challenges that, or observations that we made, which and Honorable Chair has actually spoken to us. One of the observations is the financial shortage occasioned by the fact that the member states delay in their contributions and remittance, and this therefore means that when they come to, when they sit, they are not able to transact the business. So it slows down the programs and everything else that goes with it. So with that, the East African community may not be very, very strong. So that was one of our observations. And I would also say that the free movement of the East African originated goods is frustrating, or is frustrated by the persistence of the NTPs even after 16 years of implementation. And that is one of the areas which we looked at it. And I want to also mention that one of the observations that we actually found is the fact that the trade between the East African countries is very low. The intra-East African trade at 10%, while the international trade accounts for 90% of the East African trade. Now, it was funny, we looked at it and say, does it mean that we don't trust even with the products, with the goods that we have? We don't want to trade among ourselves, but instead, we want to get goods from another country, yet we have our own goods. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that the member countries should pull up their socks, and Kenya, being the big brother, should always show the way. And therefore, the ministry that Honorable Chair has spoken about should work harder and be felt in the East African community. Honorable.
Honorable members, I now propose a question that this House adopts the report of the Select Committee on Regional Integration on its visit to semi-autonomous institutions of the East African Community in Arusha, Tanzania, from 2nd to 8th April 2023, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 6th June 2023. Member for Kwanza.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to take this opportunity to thank the chair of this community, and I want to remind her that when East Africa was East Africa, I was a schoolboy. And I can tell you, Madam Speaker, I think we have a lot to do. You have lost so much. She's quite right in what she has said, because I was there. I had 3 of my cousins employed as employee of East Africa. One was railway, East Africa Railways. In fact, my brother-in-law, who married my sister and taught me in school, was actually working for East African Airways. There was also East African Airways. Again, I don't think Wanji could know that, but I can tell you that before she was born, there was East African. No, I'm not really saying anything else. I'm just supporting you to say that there have been institutions in East Africa that I think this region has messed up. No, I didn't say anything about your death. I only talked about the future. Please protect me from the chair lady, because I'm just trying to say she has done a very good job. She should be clapping instead of actually...
Member for Kwanza, the chair looks very happy.
She's very happy.
Yeah.
Then I'm also very happy to remind her that I think as a country, as the community, we have missed quite a bit. Because if we went the same spirit we had that time, this region will be doing very well. And the chair has come up, she's meant very well, that even the inter-trade between the countries has been constrained. I don't know for what reasons. So I think this House should actually repeat this particular report very strongly and encourage the East African countries to revive the idea that we had, although those, of course, was colonial days, but revive, to be able to actually to have this trade and other relationships, even in schools. I know my own brother went to Makerere at that time, because at that time there was only Makerere University and Dar es Salaam and Nairobi University. Nairobi came much later. Again, we missed that opportunity. So, Madam Speaker, as a country, as a region, we have missed quite a bit to Today, when you want to travel, and I've traveled region to the region, I was going to Busia, and you know, there's a roadblocks, and you want why roadblocks are there? Not because anything else, because the trucks that leave this country to go to the west, go all the way to the East African countries. And this again, I think the presidents of all the countries in the region should come together and encourage the inter-country trade relationship, because you go to Tanzania, down Tanzania, recently I went to Arusha, again you are searched, as if you are a foreigner. Well, actually we are for this community, and I will not be surprised at this rate we are going, would be now be asked to have visa to go to our neighboring countries. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that we should do much better than what we are doing today to be able to actually revive some of those activities. I can tell you, with the population of East Africa is going up every other day. And if we actually can improve the relationship between the countries, we'll be able to have inter-state trade and what have you, and they will do much better than we are doing now. There are quite a number of things that actually we can list up, and I think the chair must have all those things, and let's be serious and even dictate, because we are even ministers of the East Africa community is not there. So and you prefer going to China, you prefer going to Europe, you prefer going to other places, when you have relationship with a region that has got everything that we need, and we can export that kind of thing to these countries and be able to improve the status of the economy of our country. So I want to support this, this report, and I hope that this parliament will be able to force the countries. What comes up, because Kenya was in the leadership of East Africa community. We should even revive that. So, Madam Chair, I think do something about it.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Member for Marsabit County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important report that has been tabled by our very able chair. And I also want to congratulate the committee for working very hard, because this committee of late has been one of the best committees. And congratulations, Madam Chair, because you are so passionate on what you are doing and you lead by example. So I want to congratulate you on behalf of the entire committee, because even all this report is as a result of your hard work and your guidance that has really helped our committee to progress very well. That also confirms, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, confirms the leadership of women, because you can move from zero to something. And when we started as a committee, we didn't know that we can progress very well until our chair showed her real leadership skills that brought us to this level. So I thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to add my voice to this, as of course I've already congratulated the committee and especially the team that went on this trip. Madam Speaker, our committee has been able to visit different places, and one of the things that really encourages us is the free movement of East African originated goods. Is now one of the things that really encourages us is the the relationship that we have. And being part of this East Africa, we should be proud, because we have people, we have our culture, we have the best, we have fertile and agricultural land. Our culture is so rich. We have so many good things and the resources that God has blessed us with. But unfortunately, again, sometimes we don't make good use of the opportunities and the resources that God has given us. And this report will help us understand the current situation so that we can improve on what we already have. Madam Speaker, the committee made several observations, And one of the observations that the committee made is the intra-East African Committee trade for a number of years has constantly remained low at about 10%, which is unfortunate because we ought to have grown. But while we are at 10%, the international trade has been accounting for 90%. In fact, we should aim at growing our own economy, seeing how best we can interact and grow our businesses, because that will help East Africa to grow in a big way. And so that is one thing that we need to pick. And then the other thing is the free movement of East Africa. Originated goods is frustrated by persistence of the MTBS even after 16 years of implementation of custom union. All this frustrates the business and trade that happens, and there is need for improvement that can really have some positive impact on this. Madam Speaker, I also want to congratulate the Democratic Republic of Congo that joined this because this is the newest member of the community and of East Africa, which joined us on 8th of April 2022. That shows that we are also growing, and I'm sure in our growth there is a lot of strength. The only thing that we need to improve and also promote is that cohesion and understanding, so that we can unite and improve our economy, our development, our growth, and our agricultural practice, and also promote our culture that is quite rich. And with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Member for Busia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really congratulate the committee for coming up with a very heavy dose about East African community. Along the way, I remember when I was younger, some of my uncles used to work in Makerere. There are some industries in Uganda, and they would easily just move and, get all these jobs easily. But along the way, the trade barriers, political instability, it threatened social cohesion, and also having maybe like similar products. There was this competition among member states, and with this happening, the member states lost the grandiosity that was there, the beauty of having, being together and working together as member states. So I know by now, most of us, even after colonialism, we do not have teething problems as nations. And the gaps that are there, I think most of these nations, if they sit and mean well and have targets as nations, they will merge and be stronger and come up with a common goal that can attract even international communities and make sure that no nation continues experiencing these instabilities. Recently, when I heard the president of Tanzania say that the instability in Kenya has made them gain and get tourists and get investors, it was a bit sorry. That was a sorry statement, because if we mean well for each other, then immediately anything happens to our sister country, what member states should do is to come in and see how to help, and not to look like they are celebrating. So that was a little unfortunate, but we still strongly believe in being together and not breaking away. The example that we've seen recently on Brexit, when England was insisting to leave European, how do they call it, the European community thing, European Union. What they had not seen, the bigger picture, is most professionals had come from these other member states. Now they are wallowing between not having enough professionals like doctors, and now coming up with newer and lesser, not strong, stricter methods of getting professionals. being together as member states, you will get a professional from this nation that maybe you do not have, an expatriate or somebody who can help in when you are lacking something. So it is scratching each other's back and not a competition as it has been seen way before. Thank you for this motion, and thank you for coming up with this. The committee, I applaud you.
Member for Limuru.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to support this report, and it is important, Madam Speaker, for us to know why we failed to grow the East African community. Madam Speaker, the people who colonized us, they looked at our community when it was strong, and they worked around it to make sure that it falls. Madam Speaker, when they were doing that, they were putting their house in order in Europe, and they came up with their union. Madam Speaker, it is important for this region to know that when we are trying to get together, there are forces which always will work against us. We know that, Madam Speaker, being together, we can be stronger economically, we can enable ourselves to trade among ourselves, we will remove the barriers that exist in transportation, in language, in education, in many things, including research, Madam Speaker. So as we look at East Africa, we must know that we live in a competitive world, and as the community is growing, now including the new states that are getting in and others which are trying to come on board, Madam Speaker, we must work to make sure that we stay together, we remove those barriers, that we look at ourselves as people who would create a bloc that can compete with other blocs. Madam Speaker, we had a very respectable union. We had the East African Railways, and the central workshops was based here in Nairobi. We had the research, the libraries and everything together for East Africa. But Madam Speaker, we can get our acts together, like has been mentioned in this report, and we formulate as to how we will fight the rest of the other world in this global and very cruel economic war that is ongoing. So, Madam Speaker, as a country, when we are talking of shortage of certain food commodities, we know our neighbors have been growing maybe what we need. In Kenya here, Madam Speaker, we know that we are manufacturing things that our neighbors will require. But what we need is to make sure that we gain from each other and not fight against each other. Madam Speaker, I pray for a day that the cost of air transport, for example, to Mombasa will be more or less like the same to fly to Mutembei or to Kigali. Because, Madam Speaker, we still are making things very difficult for ourselves because we have refused to remove the barriers between ourselves. We must make sure that within our community, we remove the barriers so that people can freely move and they don't have to burden themselves with additional costs that are not necessary. Madam Speaker, if you go to Europe, moving from one country to the other, it doesn't cost you much because you are crossing a border. But we still are keeping those boundaries and making restrictions which work against our people. So, Madam Speaker, as we go forward, it is my prayer that we open up these borders so that our people can make advantage of the resources that we have. And the biggest resource we have, Madam Speaker, is the people that we have in East Africa. I support.
Thank you. Member for Tigania West.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this motion. Honourable Speaker, I stand to support the adoption of the report by the committee. Honourable Speaker, I would wish to thank the committee for taking time to expose the members to the institutions at the East African community level, especially at Arusha. Honourable Speaker, the world is going large, and the only way to improve or increase efficiency is to get bigger, because the bigger, the better. Even in machines, Honorable Speaker, the bigger the machine, the more efficient it is. Provisions are bound, Honorable Speaker, that we start with a free trade area. There was a time, indeed, East Africa was a free trade area, and there was free movement of goods and services, and a reduction of tariffs of certain goods. Right now, we speak of being a customs union. The East African Common Market Protocol has been signed. And the Common Market Protocol took time to negotiate because of the inherent issues we have as a region. This is because we are at different levels of understanding of what needs to be done. We suspect each other too much, and we are not ready to cede the ground, as it were. If you look at a region like the European Union right now, the European Union, they are moved further to what we call a common market. They're using common currency. You don't need to think about the changes of the currency from one country to another. The price of commodities are more or less standardized by the currency. What happens is that people agree on what to do in their region. Moving on, we will move into an economic union and finally a political federation. Political federation is where you have one president of the region. And those who have achieved this is the United States of America. There's no one else who has achieved. Because taken as states, they would basically be different countries. But US has the enormous power because they have put everyone into a process of thinking. They, Honorable Speaker, think as a country, develop as a country, and grow as a country. But they have their individual state-specific issues that they deal with. Looking at this African community, Honorable Speaker, that is why I think it was a very good idea to expose the committee on what happens at Arusha. Knowledge is power. Getting to know what we have at Arusha is important for the committee, even as they think through and try to pursue issues to do with what the committee needs to do in the next 4 or 5 years. It was important for them to go to be able to understand exactly what is functioning and what is not functioning. It was important for them to basically be able to be appraised on what investments have gone on and how these investments are benefiting the different countries that we have. Going the integration way is the only way Africa can help herself. 2 days ago, I saw an African anthem, a hand of the ones within the African anthem. Talked of unity, talked of development, talked of togetherness. These ones are in Kiswahili. The largest, the biggest spoken language, we may say the more commonly spoken language in Africa today is Kiswahili. But if you look at Africa, the entire West Africa doesn't speak Kiswahili. A bit of Central Africa and a bit of Eastern Africa has more or less influenced the choice of the language. What are we saying? If we could speak the same language, all of us, we would have been more advantaged as we are as a region. It is our responsibility to grow and develop Africa. Let no one ever imagine that somebody will come from outside to come and develop Africa. Whatever comes from outside goes back in whichever way it is, and it goes back in a bigger way than it came. What we need as Africans is to think of how can we support each other to grow our regions and therefore grow Africa as it were. If we sat down as Africa, we would identify our endemic areas. Where do we have potential to develop what? When do we have capacity to grow what raw materials, what kind of industrialization can we apportion certain regions, and how can we share these resources across Africa? As we look at growing Africa as Africans, we need to look at how does East African community, or East Africa as it were, position herself to be able to engage the rest of the regions of Africa. And that is why getting to know or understand what happens at this African community level is very, very important. Honourable Speaker, Africa needs the rest of the world, all right, but Africa needs to organize herself better so that it can be able to engage better with the rest of the world.
Your time is up. Honorable Fatuma, Full Network, member for Migori.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for knowing my powerful name, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute. First, I want to say a big thank you to the group that put this together through the chair lady. Kudos, this was a good job. But again, I also want to state
that the relationship we have with our neighbors, it's not building to building, it's human to human. And the people who are likely to spoil this relationship is us politicians. We need to be very careful with our statements. An example, and I'm sorry to say so, I saw a member of parliament, a senior member, talk about a neighboring president who had tried to bring peace between two brothers here at home. And he really talked bad. And I'm wondering, the brothers the other side, when they watch such videos, then they start thinking that there is no brotherhood between us. Because I think when two brothers are fighting and a neighbor wants to come in, that is the meaning of East African community. So politicians need to be very sensible and stop being reckless with their statements. It's very important because wananchi will cross the other side to go and graze their cows, and they'll be reminded what a member of parliament said, yet they do not even know what that member said. So I request...
Member for Tigania, what is out of order?
Order of Speaker, is the member in order to assume that when one side of the divide decides they have issues, the other side necessarily sees it the same way and therefore should get into an invitation of a head of state to resolve a problem that is not properly articulated? Honourable Speaker, that the member is out of order. She needs to tell us exactly in which sitting did the two sides agree to call anyone in to solve the problem, and which problem was it?
You've made your point, Honourable Mutunga. Honourable Fatuma, please restrict yourself to the motion, and the attributes on the speech, may it be a property of this House and not outside. Restrict yourself to the motion.
I stand guided, but Honorable Mutunga, I did not blame anyone, and I like being honest, and I don't like doing politics when sensitive things are happening. I didn't talk of any negotiation. I only talked of a member who made a statement. And I'm sorry about that, Madam Speaker, but I still say that as politicians, we need to watch our mouths. Honestly, we need to. Tomorrow, it might be me who say something that could interfere with our relationship with our neighbor. That's all I was trying to put across. Honorable Speaker, just on that note again, there are other neighbors who have issues where we are in East African community. As a big brother in this community, I also think it's important for us to talk to other brothers and sisters who have similar issues, could be worse issues than us. And to be specific, I will talk of DRC. They have issues. They are our neighbors. They run to us. Many of them are here as refugees. They are flocking our country. Sending our troops to go there only is not enough. We could also come out with a way to say that we can come in and help DRC have peace in their country so that the mothers of that country can live in peace, the children in that country can live within their rights. So, Madam Speaker, all I'm saying is, in this brotherhood and sisterhood, let us really, really cooperate and make neighborhood be very important to us than anything else. We do business with our neighbors, and if our relationship is encouraged more, intermarriages, businesses, and even other things, like there are times that Kenya we face drought, that our cows are forced to go to the other side and get water from the other side. Vice versa, their cows sometimes might cross to come to the other side and have water. So I'm saying we might take it as a simple thing, just like pepper, that we have East African community and that's it. But we need to go down to Mwananchi and tell them, if you see a neighbor from Uganda, from Tanzania, or any other, that's your sister, that's your brother. We teach our children that the country, the next border is your brother and your sister, so that we can live together in harmony. Madam Speaker, I won't have much to say, and I support this motion.
Thank you, Member for Migori. Honorable Shieni Wakieni.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. And thank you for those who came up with this motion. It is a word of motion that we need to reflect on, particularly this time that we have integrated as East African community, and also asking our very good neighbors to join us, like the Somalia and the DRC, who have also volatile borders and conflict within themselves. For us and for East African community to succeed and go beyond, another duty that is bestowed on our regional leaders is to make sure that all member states enjoy relative peace. Without that, even when we integrate ourselves with them, bad bacteria may at times close into our country, and we may not have enough safe to make sure that bad ideas and bad behavior does not also close into our country. However, Madam Speaker, much more than everything else is that in Kenya, we have to refocus our focus on East African community, because I was in this country, a grown-up person, when 1 shilling was exchanging to that 6 Uganda money, currently doing at 16. I was here when the TZ money was 1 Kenya shilling to around 26 shillings TZ money. Currently, the exchange rate has shown that other countries' economies are developing, that today the TZ money is charging at 15. The Uganda money is charging at below 20. That means that other African economies are growing when we are not growing. Madam Speaker, the newly refurbished East African community was started by the late President Kibaki in conjunction with Yoweri Museveni and Jakaya Kikwete. The agreement was that for these countries to come to a level of development and trade area, we developed a free trade area where Kenya was to accept all goods from Uganda, from Tanzania, tax-free, and Kenyan goods going to Uganda, Tanzania on tax. Much later, and that period was agreed for 5 years. After 5 years, our goods are still taxed as if there was no that window that they were given to develop their industries, to grow their economy, to come to our terms so that our trade could just go on. So I really want to implore on our Committee on East African Community to look at that the same will not also be extended, that when DRC want to bring us their wood and other products, they will come to Kenya duty-free, and when we want to export to them, we pay tax. And on this one, I really want to thank the committee that really developed this program and have a very good observation on what is really going on between our good neighbors. It is not hidden that our treasure in Kenya is our human resource. And I wish that Kenya puts a lot of effort in exporting labor, skilled labor, to these other countries, because we have it. And if our labor is accepted beyond our borders to Europe and America, I think we can also export enough labor to our neighbors, and they be acceptable. They agree that our labor is skilled, and we export. They be our diaspora. And on this one, I really support the motion and thank the developers of the motion and the Kenya to move on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. There being no more interest in this motion, I will now call the mover to reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I first say thank you to all members who have considerably debated this report of the Committee on Regional Integration. Seeing them becoming passionate, I'm sure we are getting majority on our side, because the matters of East Africa need to be known. Honorable Speaker, it's true, as the members have said, there is a time we had the East African Airways, we had the Kenya Railway now, which was East African Railway. We had the 3 universities, that is University of Makerere, University of Dar es Salaam, University of Nairobi, which admitted students within East Africa with specialization of law in Dar es Salaam, economics in Makerere, and engineering in Nairobi. We still have the East African cables, and the benefit of being together is immense. Honorable Speaker, today, regional integration in the whole world is the way to go. And I'm happy because even as East Africa now, we have gone a step higher, and we are thinking of the tripartite, where we will be coming together with the COMESA and SADC. And Honorable Speaker, this means that we shall be able now to sit as 3 blocks in one and negotiate. If there is any agreement, we can negotiate when we are many. The other day, the president of our country said how one white man speak and address 55 of them. We have 55 member states in African Union. So we can be of higher advantage and get more benefit if we negotiated as one. But of course, we start at home as East Africa. As Kenya, we have a huge challenge that I throw to the government and every member who matters on matters of policy, sensitization and such, to try and embrace East Africa. What honorable member here have said is true, that even when we joined this 13th Parliament, those members who were sent in the Regional Integration Committee were like dumped there. It didn't seem like a committee which has value. But today I can report to this House that through this mandate of the Standing Order 212, where we are left to examine record and inquire any other matter, we did engage the Department of Immigration and we informed them that we are the custodian of movement of people, and people are not moving simply because they do not have passport. And they cried, they had to say budget and all this. And we told them, yes, you speak of budget, but you take money up front. When a citizen apply for a passport, he pay 4,500 up front. So how comes again you tell the citizen that you do not have money? Define ways and means how you leave some money at the source. And today, last week we had a meeting with the Director of Immigration and the PS. My committee is very happy because we really lobbied, knowing that the Departmental Committee on National Security is a huge committee and it is departmental, but it has very many departments. They have prison, they have national police and all that. So it wasn't so much of their interest to look at to immigration. It was a pure interest to look at immigration because we want people to move with the passport. And we took this matter upon ourselves, we moved the matter, and today the Treasury has agreed to leave 1.3 billion. The Department of Immigration normally collects 3 billion on passports only. 1.3 will be remaining at immigration. This will make them have the machine serviced, buy the booklets, and make sure that there is continuity of work. This is just to demonstrate how this committee can cross-cut in all ministries and make things move. I can also report that this weekend, Honorable Murkomen has confirmed to us that the government is in communication with Uganda, and very soon we are returning the East African Railway, because the railway from Naivasha is headed to Uganda through Malaba. And in fact, over the weekend when we finished the meeting, he had a meeting with the ministers from Tanzania, from Uganda. It is just to indicate to members that things are happening, but we need to do more. We have to realize that the richest men in Africa, appointing case being Dagote, they have always traded within Africa. How comes us want to trade with China, with India? When we look at European Union, they are so strong because they are always moving together. So we must be strong, but Kenya as a country, and Honorable Speaker, you being one of the administrators or leadership of this House, you have to help our committee to make sentences that are heard by the government, because I think time and again, even the government stakeholders are not aware the potential and opportunity lying ahead of this country on East Africa. I thank you once more to all members who have participated, and we continue to do more, and we continue to bring more report in this House. With that, I thank you, and I don't know if I say I beg to move, I beg to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You beg to reply. And for the convenience of the House, understanding Order 53.3, we will defer the putting of the question. Order members. And the time being 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 2nd of August, 2023, at 9:30 a.m.